the best way to learn a language?
Bulache.
No, I'll teach you better ones. Oh, that's your company logo.
So welcome everyone to the concluding session of day 2 of 12th Business IT Conclave. Today's session is security, always a constant to be aware of, to discuss, to brainstorm and to learn. So this session we have expert speakers from USA, Switzerland and Zambia, and the session will be moderated by Mr. N.K. Ghoshal, Director, NKG and Associates, Mentor, Webel BCCI Tech Incubation Center and member IT Committee. So with this I would request Mr. Ghoshal, I call him NKG, to please take forward the session.
Okay, thank you so much Angona. Good evening everyone. We have a lot of learned speakers getting onto this session. They are Chris from Zambia. If you can raise your hand, Chris, and identify yourself and say hello. Scott.
Hi, hello.
From America.
Glad to be here.
Charlie and Graf all the way from Switzerland, and me from Kolkata. So Chris, if you can quickly introduce yourself, and then we can ask Scott and Charlie Graf to introduce themselves.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to engage with you people, see how we can learn from each other. So as introduced, my name is Christopher Nanchengwa. I'm from Zambia. I work for a company called the Zambia Electronic Clearing House. This is a national payment switch operator of Zambia. I currently serve as the information security manager. So I govern and manage information security endeavors that ensure that our resources are safe. I've got experience in maintaining a number of standards, ISO 27001, PCI DSS. I've got history in implementing a number of frameworks. I also sit on the ISACA board for the Lusaka chapter, where I serve as the education and academic relations chair. So I'm the guy responsible for engaging with educational institutions and see how they all participate into ensuring that ISACA is helpful. So looking forward to the discussion, and again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chris. Scott?
Well, good evening, everyone, or I should say good morning. My name is Scott Augenbaum. If you can tell by the big smile on my face, it's because I am retired from the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States. The FBI is the lead law enforcement federal agency in the US, and I handled cybercrime as my core competency for about 20 years. Today, I've been retired for 3.5 years. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer. I wrote a book called The Secret to Cybersecurity, and I live a passion project life, which is taking what I've learned in all my years with the FBI and being able to share it. And the thing that I'm so excited about today is, there's been so many bad things with COVID. We're not in front of people, but now I get a chance to hang out with my friends in India, make some new friends in Zambia and Switzerland. And we had some great discussions prior to planning for this. So this is going to be a really great interactive event, and I am so excited to be here with everyone today.
Thank you, Scott. Charlie and Graf.
Good evening, everyone, here from Switzerland. My name is Charlie Graf, and on my side is Konstantin Stasinakis. Together, we are in the cybersecurity area since 2013. We are more on the organizational side, where we are focusing internal threats, and we are implementing technical measures to mitigate those risks occurring on the daily business, on unwanted data disclosure or data loss. And that's what we are doing since 2013. Started with the financial industry because they were regulated and the new rules have been issued by the Swiss regulator. And further on with the new data protection law that will come effective by January 2022, We are still talking to our customers, talking about awareness, what can be done, what should be done. And today we are contributing mainly on situations that has occurred in the past and how we should react, or how can we prevent those things in the future.
Thank you so much, Chris, Scott, Charlie, and Graf. As an aside to the audience, Charlie and Graf are also commercial pilots. And so I feel that they bring a lot on the table, because if you're a commercial pilot, you do a lot of things on a checklist. And we as security folks, we also carry checklists. And they say about pilots that if you make a mistake in the checklist, you're dead. I think that same thing applies to security. So I start off the session with Chris, and Chris has a lot of experience in the security area. He has literally made the SWIFT agency that he's sitting on right now in Zambia ISO compliant. And so I thought that he would be the best guy if we could start off with the topic of dark web and what is the difference between the dark web and the dark net. There's a difference. So Chris, if you could just start the ball rolling, and we then start moving a little faster on the other topics.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, of course, there are quite a number of ways you can look at the threat of the dark web, the dark net, but I like to look at it from a simplistic perspective. You need to understand what the internet is. And basically, the internet is an interconnection of networks, of computers. So my computer is connected to Charlie's computer, it's connected to Scott's computer, and so on. So it's a very big network with all sorts of devices and everything. So the network is segmented into two layers, if I can say. There's what you call the surface internet, which is what most people are exposed to, which is what most people use. And then there's the lower level, which is called the dark web. What is on the surface is subject to regulation, is monitored, and there are a group of people who look at it and ensure that the content that is there is right for the age, for different countries, and so on. But what is at the lower level, what is referred to as the dark web, is not regulated, is not monitored. Some of it is legal, some of it is not legal. So what is the danger with that? So if you keep surfing what is on the top, the surface web, you'll be getting content that is okay, that is safe. But there is no regulatory organization that looks at the dark web, and therein lies the risk. So we've seen a number of risks materializing in the recent past. Risks of ransomware, crypto miners getting their tools onto your computers, and so on. And that is the danger we're talking about on the dark web. The software, the content that you access on the dark web is not secure, is not safe, it's not vetted. There's no one who cleans it up. They are not liable to anyone. So whatever you get on the dark web is not safe. Of course, there are good things on the dark web. There are bad things. There are a lot of bad things. But what are the drivers? Why do people resort to the dark web? I mean, most of the content that you want, most of the software, most of the music, most of the movies, you'll find them on the surface net. But why do people resort to the dark web? What I've noted for now, especially for countries that are doing digital transformation, people go onto the dark web because of cost. So if you're on the surface web, I'll give an example. They didn't sponsor me or anything. I'll give an example of Kaspersky or any other antivirus software. If you want it, you go to their site, you pay for it, you buy it. It's safe, it's vetted. What happens when you can't afford it, when you don't want to pay for it? Then you go to the dark web, or you go to a website that hosts it. You get it, you use it. But what guarantee do you have that what you're getting there is actually real, is actually content that is vetted, is actually content that is safe? So as we use what we want to do, or as people engage into digital transformation, We need to have a framework that ensures that we rely on tools and applications that are vetted, that are clean, that will ensure that you're not exposed to ransomware, you're not exposed to crypto miners or any other tools that will compromise your data. So I've noticed in my environment, I'll jump a bit from the dark web. You talk about torrents, same concept. There are sites on the surface web that offer the same tools that they perceive to be free, that you can jump onto. In my network, I notice people once in a while get excited. They want to download a free movie. They want to download free software. They want to download free music. Scan that content. Almost 100%, you find there's malware attached to that content. And that malware jumps onto your network the moment somebody gets it. So we need to be careful, and we need to ensure that our people are educated to get the right content. We need to ensure that our networks do not allow people to access those contents. A lot can be said about it. There are a number of tools that you can use to access the dark web or these sites. Dark web, you talk about Tor. Tor is a browser, readily available, very free. A 12-year-old can use it. You're able to access multiple sites where you can get these things from. So from a network perspective, you need to have tools in place that will stop people from downloading Tor, from downloading browsers, all sorts of tools to access your dark web, thereby ensuring that your network is safe. You need to have a very strong awareness program. The biggest challenge with people with security is the people. It's not the technology. The technology will be there, the process will be there, but trust me, there'll always be that one person that will want to get it cheaper. That feels, why should I go to the cinema when I can get this movie? So you need to have things in place to ensure that these things don't happen on your network. Put in the technology, but invest in awareness. Invest in user awareness. Our users need to know what is wrong with these things. Run them through them. Train the people, drill them. People need to know the dangers of malware. Talk about the money. A user on your network downloads a free movie. James Bond movie is almost coming out now. He downloads the movie, saves the $10 on the cinema. If that movie contains malware and it cripples your whole network, are you able to compare the cost of the movie against the cost of your network being down? That should be the motivation for your awareness program, to ensure that people are aware of the wrongs, the bad things that come with diving onto the dark web, diving onto these websites. And one thing you notice is that of late, you find people not just ransomware, your private pictures, private information that you have on your network. One thing about a network is that when you enter someone's network, you're not only accessing what is on their network, you're also exposing what you have. So if I go into the dark web with my laptop, I'm not only accessing what is on the dark web, I'm also bringing my laptop into the dark web, exposing it to all sorts of actors who are able to access. And trust me, there are a lot of skilled people who operate on the dark web. They will get your content, they'll expose you, they'll expose your company. So in a nutshell, digital transformation is good. We need to jump onto the digital wagon. It ensures processes are good, processes are safer, and we save humanity. But to get to a very good point in digital transformation, we need to ensure that we adopt safe ways, safe methods of transforming digitally. Avoid the dark web, please. Avoid drive-by websites. Get the content from the right places. I hope that's clear enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Like what you said in the last was very relevant, that when you get into the dark web, you are looking at the dark web and the dark web is also looking at you.
True.
And as an aside, I'll be coming to Scott regarding that later on, that half the dark web is filled with undercover agents from various government agencies. So you really don't know who you're running up against when you are on the dark web. So Charlie and Graf, I wanted to ask you all something which is not related to dark web, but very relevant right now. And that is demystifying cloud security. We talk about security, we talk about digital transformation. Now we have the pandemic. everything is migrating to the cloud. Clients are confused which service provider to use, how secure is my data, and then today I open the newspapers and it's talking about confidential computing. Now, there are about, at the top of our head, 4 or 5 service providers who give us cloud services. But when you go to the cloud alliance, that is the CSA, you find there are about 18 or 19 vetted cloud service providers who are certified externally. So what does this all mean to the person who wants some space on the cloud? How does he, first of all, select a vendor? Second is, how does he know that his data is safe in a place where he doesn't even know where the servers physically exist? Over to you.
Thank you very much for this interesting question. It's quite challenging. When we see the current trend, because work from home has become a common way of working as an employee, and organization invested a lot since the pandemic to make this as a common standard procedure that people are working from anywhere and accessing data from anywhere as well. Additionally, organizations have started to migrate a lot of business processes into cloud-based services as a service component within those vendors that are available. Basically, how to evaluate the best suiting cloud provider, it's really depending on your risk appetite as an organization. And if you are planning to externalize sensitive business processes, then of course you should focus on those brands which are in the market for a long time, who are offering security capabilities as part of the service. And that's what you actually should go. And coming back to the statement of Chris, what he just said is not relevant only for private people as well, but more as well for employees who are accessing applications for their job on every day. And we found out on research that today a standard employee, if we are collecting all this data, we have identified that a standard organization is actually operating more than 6,000 applications which are not managed by the organization, which becomes very difficult actually to maintain a security level. So coming back again to Chris' statement saying that the employees, as he mentioned for private people, awareness is key number one. So they should understand what they're doing with their data. So that's why we think it's more on training people awareness, and technology comes only later to protect some of these business processes from unwanted disclosure and loss of data. So coming back to the question of you saying, how do I evaluate the best vendor for me? It's just make sure that you understand what business process going out, are they sensitive or not? And then evaluate the vendor that is offering the security capability you need for your business processes in the cloud. And then you should go from there.
Thank you so much, Chris and Charlie. Scott, I'm back again. Now,
You are.
Questions coming up. First question, is it true that our devices may track us, our conversations in this present, even if we aren't engaging online?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question, and it goes back to a deeper issue. Do we really have an expectation of privacy on the internet? And, I get that all the time. And then, we go into situations, people are oversharing on the internet, they're oversharing on LinkedIn. And that's a question we got to focus on is, the business email compromise right now is the greatest financial threat to any organization globally. That is when the cyber criminals take over an email account of an organization, because what do? They find all these usernames and passwords that are on the dark web. So let me start off by saying if your organization does not have two-factor authentication on your email, you are going to become a cybercrime victim. I do not care how much money you spend, you will be victimized. So that's point number one. Point number two is now the bad guys are getting all this information off of LinkedIn because now a lot of organizations, and, it's one of those things that Charlie's saying, especially in the financial services sector. So what do? You go out there, the organization spends a lot of money, and now you're able to map out the entire organization on LinkedIn because you know who the treasury manager is within that organization. And from there, the cyber criminals are doing their reconnaissance and they're able to map that out. That's why these frauds just keep getting bigger and bigger and deeper and deeper. When I'm talking to any of you guys overseas, is there a foreign intelligence agency that might be listening to our calls? Yeah. Okay. All right. But at the end of the day, there's so many things that we need to worry about. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's our giving up more information about ourselves. One of the things I try not to do is when I'm speaking live at conferences, I try very, very hard not to post that on LinkedIn. Why is that? Because everybody knows I'm out of town. Everybody knows I'm not home with my family. And I want to ask anyone here, if you're going on holiday, do you put a big sign in front of your house saying, hey, please come rob me? Of course not. But I guarantee you, everybody in the US who goes to Switzerland to go skiing's taking those live videos over here saying how great it is. So let's kind of use a little bit of the mindset approach here. And that's one of the approaches that we have to take as victims or to prevent ourselves. Are we oversharing? Are we telling too much about ourselves? And that's a really interesting conversation. Unfortunately, I can go into it for hours, but that's what I would really focus on right now is the oversharing point. And we can debate all day if we have an expectation of privacy on the internet. If you are concerned and are afraid of a foreign intelligence service or someone else listening to your calls, it's okay. Don't use a cell phone. I thought that was funny. Nobody else did.
No. Scott, the main thing here is that what you said was very relevant, and in the sense that just a few days back, we came to know that Apple had a vulnerability which Pegasus was using, and that vulnerability appeared in the month of February. So vulnerabilities will be there in the devices we use. Second, because of the pandemic, everyone has cabin fever. Everyone is oversharing information. So it is bound to happen. Chris,
let me just jump on one quick thing that you just said about, the Apple, the vulnerabilities and stuff. The cyber criminals don't have to worry about a vulnerability in Apple. What do? They go onto the dark web and they pull one of the 8.2 billion usernames and passwords that are sitting out there for the taking, because most people use the same password. And now they log into your iCloud account with your username and password, because most people aren't using two-factor, and now they know where you are. So what we got to do is really take care of the low-hanging fruit to prevent victimization.
This is also true, if I may jump into this one. If I go back to the organizational level, when we do assessments, we find out that similar to the statement that we have a lot of privileged accounts with standing permissions all the time, not using multi-factor authentication. And especially when it comes to privileged accounts, we found a lot of weak passwords, which are either on the dark web available or just simple one like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they don't expire. So these are simple things we just identify in organization, which is similar to what just Scott said. So this is a true fact on a daily basis.
And to add to that, I found it very humiliating when I got a bunch of screenshots from a service provider who was hacked recently. of all the internal admins and the passwords, which were released by the hackers in the darknet because they refused to pay the Bitcoins. So anyway, questions coming in again very quickly. First question, taking cue from the film Shadow Recruit, Jack Ryan, how vulnerable our public infrastructures are? What can be done? Chris, can you take this up?
Yeah, like I said, in our digital transformation journey, we need to adopt a framework that includes security. So we look at public infrastructure, and not just the public, everyone else. When you are transforming digitally, your focus is not on security. Your focus is on getting the process running, getting people what they want. So you want people to send emails quickly. You want to set things up, people send emails. You want to set up a shop floor very quickly. You want people to be able to sell and buy. Security is only thought of in most cases when a breach happens, unfortunately. Unfortunately, security is at the tail end of the process. People are in so much of a hurry to prove that things are working, not that they are working securely. And therein lies a problem. So most public infrastructures, a lot of private infrastructure, they are still running on default accounts. They are still running on default passwords and so on. Configurations are still the default settings. People have not been trained to do the security stuff. So public infrastructure, like any other infrastructure, is not safe. There are a lot of backdoors out there. Programmers, when they're setting up a program, when they're setting up a system, they always set up an anchor account. Things always go bad, but they always have that anchor account which they can use to bring back the system. As the system owners, you need to ensure that all those anchor accounts, they are cleared off the system before you go into production. I'm a fan of Jack Ryan. I've watched the movies, the first one by Ben Affleck. I'm a fan of the series. It was very good. But of course, hacking doesn't really work like that. But it gives you an idea of how easy it is to get into these systems when they are not configured the right way, when they're running on default passwords, when they're running on default settings. So definitely, public infrastructures, like any other infrastructure, they are open to vulnerability. What can we do about it? Work with a workable framework. Adopt a framework that ensures that your devices, your systems are vetted before they go into production. Have a system of periodically checking for vulnerabilities and so on. I've got experience with PCI DSS, security framework for you running card payments and so on. You look at the framework, your quarterly vulnerability scans, they're a must. You don't do that, there is no way you're going to pass. There is no way you're going to be cleared to process public transactions. So adopt such ideas. Adopt such ways of working. Vet your public infrastructure. Quite a number of tools out there. I'm sure Charlie can talk about the number of tools that are available out there. I don't want to mention them by name, but there are a lot of free tools. If you're a small organization, you don't have the funding, there's a lot that is available on the open source market. Start from there. Secure your environment. Ensure your vulnerabilities are cleared on a daily basis. Take care of your logs. Logs are very critical in any environment. They tell the story of what is happening. Most people just know about logging into the system, checking there is enough space for the system to run. But are you checking who's running around in your network? Are you checking what your administrators are doing? So address your vulnerabilities, address your configurations, ensure that your people know what they're doing. But like the question has been clearly put, our public infrastructure is not safe until we do something about it. Thank you.
I can also add on to that, Chris, what you just said is we have recent experience in energy providers in Switzerland. They are going the digitalization path because they need to, especially Internet of Things become the next big thing. So even more data on the internet from your house, from your fridge, from your heating, air condition, etc. So what they're now doing on the digitalization path, they are including the considerations and requirements of security into their design on the architecture. That's the first step. And before going into production, as you just said, they are going to a fundamental testing, and especially they do external penetration testing to find out any holes to make sure that when they go into production, they at least met their standards that they want, and they are mitigating the risk as much as possible. As you just said, there are no 100% guarantee at all, but at least you have, as a provider, make sure that your system is fine. But we have the example in the US recently with the, what was it, the pipeline story?
The colonial
gasoline?
the colonial pipeline.
So as this is an example that you are never safe on this kind of story. So at least you can plan and you can make sure you do the best you possible.
Yes, it's all boils down to PPT, people, process, technology.
Yeah.
So a couple of more questions before we head into our main discussion. They are talking about work from home, how compromises security. Is it more an issue of employers or employees or both? And what happens to the deleted data? That's interesting. What happens to the deleted data?
The deleted data? Well, listen, COVID-19 comes in and it really tests our business continuity plans to its teeth. Because let's be honest, we're not prepared for it. Nobody was prepared for COVID-19. And what ended up happening, all the business units were spinning up cloud-based platforms. Mm-hmm. Okay, because we all have to access our information. We all have to get it some way over here. And because remember, sales is the lifeblood of any business. Security slows down the business processes. So what do? We spin up all of these different platforms. We put all of our information so we all can collaborate. We can all access our information. And I got good news for everybody. Nobody's hacking the cloud. They don't need to. Because today, what do we access? Username and password, right? So here's your test right now to go over there within your organization, and let's kind of do this. If you could access any bit of information in the cloud, which could be your Salesforce, your HR platforms, your payroll platforms, or anything else, especially in accounting and finance and all those different things. Because remember, in the old days, and what did we do? We had to protect our network. Today, we don't have, the network has defined it, has moved over there, and all of a sudden, now the bad guys are getting access to it because they need usernames and passwords. During my career with the FBI, I had an opportunity to interact with almost 1,000 victims. And what did I learn? When the bad guys steal your stuff, so they get access to your cloud-based platform, they steal every bit of information, your customer records, you name it. Intellectual property, you get hit with ransomware. Law enforcement is not coming in with a magic wand to save the day, and we're not getting your information back because once it's on the dark web, it's gone. If your information is deleted, that's a great thing. But your information isn't deleted. They steal your information. And now the chances of law enforcement putting the bad guys in jail is very, very challenging. Even though there's great cooperation all over the world at the different embassies and Interpol and the FBI were working with law enforcement partners, but to put the bad guys in jail is really challenging. However, that sounds hopeless. That sounds really bad. But almost 90% of what I dealt with during my career with the FBI easily could have been prevented. So that's what we really got to focus on. We focus so much on the reaction time. And let me tell you who's killing it right now. All my retired FBI buddies are all killing it. You know what they're doing? They're doing intrusion response work. And now they're going to call it the Advanced Persistent Threat Actor, because when you were breached and you're going to pay 5 figures, 6 figures, or 7 figures, nobody wants to hear that it was nothing more than a username and password. 85% of data breaches today occur because of an account compromise. And Charlie, I'm going to throw it over to you. How do we prevent account compromises?
This is the question number one that we are discussing with the organizations here in Switzerland. And the key actually number one is to eliminate all permissions. So users don't have actually a password to handle. So this is something we find very useful in order to not having standing permissions available to any outsider, that if I need access to a system, I request the access, I get a token which is unique and which is true only for one specific time. I log in, I do my job, I log out, done deal. There is nothing an outsider can use with that, because it's all there and there is no permission, there is nothing available. So these are the kind of actions you can do to prevent this, or you can introduce, as you just said, multi-factor authentication, which ensures that you are you and not anybody else. So these are kind of discussions we are facing here.
One more question come up, which is, so our signed-in application and phones are vulnerable. Comments, please. Yeah, they are vulnerable. And it depends on if you're permanently signed in.
Well, as Scott has put it, you're permanently signed into an application using a password that you use on every other application. So if that application is compromised from that end, definitely your signed in application, they pose a vulnerability. So like Charlie has put it, we need to look at the whole cycle of provisioning, user access, and so on. Not just for an institution. Think of your phone as a corporate resource, and whatever permissions you're giving to those applications, you need to go through the cycle. You need to look at how you are provisioning and how safe they are. Talk about MFA. You need to have multi-factor authentication where it matters, on your banking applications, on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn, on your Google. You need MFA. There's too much critical information there. Reset your password every so often. I choose to proceed to say it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if, but when your password will be cracked. There are so many improvements in password cracking methodology. So I've got a Zambian phrase I can come up with, something that even Scott can't think of. I'll say it in my own language like this. But with AI and all other technologies developing, at some point that thing will be cracked. So it's not a matter of when, a matter of if, but a matter of when. So continuously reset your passwords. And
even with all that, you bring up such a great point, but just think about this. I'm just reading this right now that the Google Play Store and App Store just removed 850,000 applications over security. We have no control over this. Imagine how many of us, like on my phone, how many stupid apps that I have. But what if you were logging in remotely to a big organization from your phone, and it all comes down to trust? What are we allowing to run? And we think we have an expectation of not privacy, of security. It's on the App Store. It's on the Android store. It must be good, right, guys? This isn't, we're not talking the dark web.
Yeah, we're not even going on to the dark web.
Yeah,
These
I know.
applications that are already available. I'm a victim. When I got my first smartphone, I would never go on to Google Store or anything. I would go to a torrent site where I would download the bulk of apps in APK form. They were cheap. Even paid for applications will be there. And a lot of people are still doing that. Now imagine the added code that they've added there that makes your phone insecure. Imagine how safe your data is when you think of all the wrong applications. And all these guys, App Store managers and everyone, initially they were not looking at security. They are looking at the numbers. They need as many people using their applications, as many as possible. So they're not really concerned about the security. It's only now that we've got these laws in place that compel them to say, hey, before you allow this application to go online, at least vet it, scan it. But a number of applications on these stores have not been scanned. They've not been vetted. They contain malware. They contain what I call it, crypto mining applications there. And before you know it, your data is gone. Before you know it, you're hit by ransomware. So, we really need to look at these issues and find a way of
we have invested a lot of time on the organizational side to work on mobile device management, because mobile devices are number one sources, as you just mentioned. And this is a huge challenge because mobile devices shouldn't be trusted at all. No application should be trusted at all. So if you are, as an organization, want to use the smart device for your business data, you need to completely separate the business data from the mobile device functionality. So you need to really make sure that only those data that is processed on your mobile phone as your smart device is absolutely technically separated in the smartphone using container-based services with micro VPNs to your organization. Other than that, your smartphone will be one source of entrance for those guys we just mentioned. So don't trust your smartphone at all as an organization. If you do this as a private person, as you just heard from Scott, this is a different story.
Yeah, but I run my business off my smartphone. What do I do? Go out of business?
No.
I mean, I can't go back to ledgers anymore. Hey, I want to ask Charlie and Chris something I get faced with all the time. I want to get your opinion, because here's one thing I'm learning today during this and hanging out with you guys. We all share the same problems. It doesn't matter what country you live in. It doesn't make a difference. But how about this? I'll pick on you, Chris. How's this? Ransomware. Do we pay the ransom or do we not pay the ransom? What do you think?
That's a good one.
That's a very good one.
And let me make it worse. They've encrypted all your backups. And they exfiltrated and they stole your information.
You've got me dead in the water. I mean, from a professional perspective, and as I answer it, I'll try to also jump into the question I've just seen. They are very interesting. For security, that's the question. For security, as business, what should we do? Does it make sense to run internal hacks to check leakages? I think that boils a bit into answering your question. So, first of all, have a ransomware response strategy. Have a malware response strategy. So, ransomware is big. It's going to hit you if it hasn't hit you, but have a strategy for responding to it. Unfortunately, you said, if my backups are dead, what do I do? Do I pay? That all falls into the strategy. What's your contingency? How do you manage your backups? I've seen environments where the production and the backup environment are literally the same. You're into production, you're into their backup. So have some form of separation.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are
we're getting destroyed here in the U.S. I mean, and that's the question we're all getting faced with, because here's the fact pattern that ends up happening. You know, we're reacting. We're not talking about prevention. When I was with the FBI, I was talking about this in 2016. This is what we need to do, and everybody was talking about backing up as a strategy. Well, backing up provides you with availability. Backing up has nothing to do with confidentiality. It has nothing to do with integrity. And now what we end up seeing is, so the threat actors will infect you with ransomware on a Monday. You'll go over, you'll pay it. And then you don't figure out what was the vulnerability. Then you get impacted on a Tuesday. And then the cycle goes on and on and on. And we in the US are so buried with this.
This is the funny part also. You pay the ransom. What guarantee do you have that after they've decrypted your file, they haven't left ransomware on your system?
Absolutely.
There's nothing. Yeah. So, I mean, you need to have a solid strategy, a strategy that you get. You need to have, I know security is expensive, but come on, the loss is worth. You need to invest. The 4 layers, you talk about the detection, the prevention, the correction. Invest in all that. The guy has talked as us. Does it make sense to run internal hacks? You need the right team in your team. Yep. You need a team that pretends like they are hackers. You need people in your team that can introduce ransomware, and you need a team that needs to be trained to respond to that ransomware. So you need to address it at multiple levels. I've seen a lot of environments where you only have 1 or 2 security people and you're running $1 million enterprise and you expect to be safe. No, you need to invest in people. You need to invest in technology, and not just investing in technology, invest in the right technology. Do your risk assessment. Ransomware should form a very big part of your risk assessment. What is the risk that you're going to be hit by ransomware? What is the risk that you will fail to respond to the ransomware? What is the risk that your backups are going to be hit by ransomware? Make a plan. Thank you.
And we've seen large organizations here in Switzerland. We just had a few cases last year and also this year, that especially those organizations which were impacted on the business processes, which couldn't have a contingency on their business, they paid. Even though they publicly not committing on this, but they paid in order to get back to business, even though knowing that maybe there might be some backdoor available, so they will investigate on that. But just to ensure that the business is continuing somehow, that's why they paid.
So, much of this.
My last proposal is, if you're hit by ransomware, just format your drives and start afresh.
But formatting will not be enough. It's still there.
Yeah.
Prevention.
Prevention, number one. There you go.
There's some good news on the ransomware front. I just read an article that one of the secretaries in the US government has signed some kind of agreement where they plan to kneecap, as the Americans say, the crypto exchanges handling ransomware.
Not going to work. Let me tell you. I'm going to tell you, everybody goes like this. How did this happen? Okay. Now, 1998, Bill Clinton, who was our president at the time, formed the National Infrastructure Protection Center to come up with a uniform strategy for the U.S. government to handle attacks against cyber criminals. 1998. FBI forms a cyber division in 2002 to build the national cyber strategy. Okay. Brian Krebs in 2007 talks about Russian organized crime being the #1 threat to the financial services sector. In 2016, the FBI puts out this great guidance document, and I go around to all these large companies in my area of responsibility going, look, guys, ransomware, it's a problem. You need to do these things. And what are the things? Know what's on your network. If you don't know what's on your network, how can you patch? Okay, having a good patching program, talking about application whitelisting, reducing the attack surface with admin credentials, using two-factor authentication. We fast forward to 2021 today, and I equate that with for a little American history, and we'll talk about that. Back in the 20s, we made prohibition. Drinking was against the law. How do you think that worked out for us? Everyone's still drinking at breakfast in my country, okay? So I don't think banning cryptocurrency is going to be the answer. I don't know how you ban cryptocurrency. Making it illegal for the victims, now you're just making it even worse. We're going to have illegal ransomware payments.
Yeah, but also just to add on to that, you assume that all ransomware actors just want to get paid. There are people that just want to see the world burn. So even if you block them, they don't get paid. Ideally, they'll find a way of getting paid, but not everyone is out for a payment. That's how come you find there are people who've paid for their files back, and they still don't get them. They still pay some more, but they still don't get them. So yes, not everyone is out there to make a payment, and I think we need to look at the issue holistically. Of course, I would say it may cut out crypto actors who want to get paid, but it doesn't solve the problem. They will always find a way of getting paid, and if they're not after the money, they're still going to harm you. So we need a more holistic approach than that.
Agreed.
Okay. Now we're getting in some privacy questions. So this is that. What implication does apparently a simple action like accepting cookies may bring in terms of data security risk. This is like accepting the cookie banners. I think that's been made mandatory in the EU, right?
This is correct. This is cookie consent is one thing that has come up with the GDPR in the EU. And this might also be true for the California Act. I'm not 100% sure there, but we've seen this in other countries as well. So the accepting cookie is just because the idea behind was to prevent users from all this analytics tool that's been there to analyze what you're doing as a user, and they are approaching you afterward with some specialized programs or marketing. And the EU found that it's needed that me as a user can explicitly opt out from using these cookies. But still, this is just the organizational part. I click on there. As an organization, I have to keep track on those opt-outs saying that Scott has opted out from using Google Analytics while he's on our website, but still, you still can do the tracking. So this is a kind of, this is no relevant to the risk exposure. It's just, you need to understand that websites are still there to do the analytics, because I want to have the most out of my investment in a website or things like that.
And Charlie, here's what ends up happening. The cyber criminals do not care about GDPR. They do not care about PCI requirements. And as a result of all these regulations that we're having, it's taking away time that should be spent on the prevention aspect. Because, you know, one of the things that I mention all the time when I would sit down with big US companies and they'd go, hey, what's your strategy? And they'd go, hey, we're PCI compliant. And I would go, hey, so is JP Morgan Bank, and they got breached. Why don't you use the same guy who did their audit? Nothing against the auditor, but being compliant is not the same thing as being secure, and it's taking so much of your time. And Chris, isn't that true? Don't you have to spend so much time on the compliance side? No, I know my ISACA guys jump out the window when I say that. I'm sorry.
I totally agree with you. Security and compliance are two separate things. Actually, my perspective is that compliance is only a component of security. Most of the time, I've done this before. Somebody's on my neck, business has to continue. You go around the compliance requirement. All you want are those checkbox ticked off. But I love PCI. PCI, yeah, of course, there are ways around it, but PCI proposes a risk-based approach to whatever you're going to do. If you leave security, compliance will come naturally.
Yes,
that's the way.
Absolutely. But it doesn't go the other way around.
It doesn't go the other way around. If you secure your environment, compliance will not be a problem. But the challenge that we have is that people want to get compliant so that they do their work, even if their systems are not secure. And if you look at the compliance requirements, in most cases, they are not holistic. They leave out a lot of gaps. PCI will just focus on your payment card data. So all they care about is where your data is stored, your PANs. Are they encrypted where they're supposed to be encrypted? The traffic, is it okay? But in my business, we do more than card. So if you focus on compliance, PCI per se, you will focus on where your card holder data is flowing so that you get that certificate that allows you to work, but you don't focus on the other things, your user accounts, your strategy documents, and everything else. You leave that side exposed, and if you're looking at the body, it's like you cover your face and your whole body is naked, and you say you're secure. No, it doesn't work like that. So security comes first, and compliance will come naturally.
So well said.
On your security.
So well said.
Yeah.
One more question. What technological and infrastructure advancements can be expected to help combat cybercrime by 2030?
Hey, let me just jump in and put up some really interesting statistic on this, because The cybercrime problem keeps getting worse, okay? According to Cybersecurity Ventures, the cybercrime problem was a $3 trillion global problem in 2015. And by 2021, which is today, it went up to a $6 trillion problem. That's 100% over 5 years. And by 2025, it's going to go up to a $10 trillion problem. So we all can agree that the problem is getting worse, right? However, the amount of money we are spending to stay safe keeps increasing at the same time. So, you know, Chris, I want to ask you, because you have, you know, dealing with this. What does it mean to you with your auditing background? He's starting to get worried about the question I'm going to ask. What does it mean if the cybercrime problem keeps getting worse? However, we keep spending more money to be safe. What does that mean to you?
I'll pick your words. We're doing the wrong thing. We're not doing it. We're not doing it right. There's something we're not doing right. We're not focusing on the problem. But just to jump onto that, first of all, the industry will continue growing. Whether you like it or not, cybercrime will continue increasing. I think there are a number of factors at play here. And I like the question, the technology that you expect to come up to combat cybercrimes. The fight will always be there. I think it's just the way we fight it that will change. First principle is that the world is filled with so many people. There are good guys, there are bad guys. No matter what you do, there'll always be a good guy tomorrow, there'll always be a bad guy tomorrow. There'll always be a defender, there'll always be an attacker. That will never change. So the method of attacking will just change. And the method of defending will just change. I don't know who's going to win, whether it's the defenders or whether it's the attackers, but the war will continue. The struggle will continue. The best we can do right now, approach it from the risk-based. We do our best from the defensive side, of course, assuming that the attackers are also doing their best. AI will come in. You as a defender are going to implement AI. You're going to implement all the technologies and enhance your infrastructure. But you know what else is happening on the other side? The bad guy is also improving on his AI. He's also improving on the good thing. So at the end of the day, the war will continue. The industry will continue to grow. And
Chris, this is what drives me crazy.
Will continue to grow.
This is what drives me crazy, because if you would have heard my presentation in 2010, I'm talking about the same stuff, guys. I'm not talking about anything new, except if you hear my presentations, I throw out 2 words today that are different. Ransomware and the business email compromise. That's it. We're not doing the basics. We're not doing the things that Charlie talked about. We're not doing the things that Chris talked about, but all of a sudden we want to buy AI. We think that there's going to be a product that's going to come in, but I propose it's a mindset shift. It's not a product. It's not a service. It's the way we think about this problem, or else it's Einstein's theory of insanity. Guys, this is why I get so nuts when I do these things, because I went to major enterprises and I would sit down with companies and I would try to explain to them that, look, there's a problem. And they'd go like this. We're not worried. We're only an $8 billion company. The cyber criminals are only targeting $10 billion and above. I had companies go like this. We're a small company. No one's going to target us. $300 million small company. And what really got me during my career is it broke my heart that I couldn't help people. Because when I was a young FBI agent, the harder I worked, the more bad guys I put in jail. The more I dealt with cybercrime, it was the same story every day. I couldn't get their money back. I couldn't put the bad guys in jail, but a majority of the stuff could have been prevented. And that's why, you know, you guys are on the front lines, and I admire you on what you do, because it's impossible to change corporate behavior.
Yeah, or maybe just a last thought. I don't know what you think about it. So I feel the biggest challenge with cybercrime, ransomware, is the principle of anonymity. People don't want to be known. That gives them a cover to say they can do what they want to do, and you won't be able to tell them. But with the coming in of privacy laws and everything, don't you think we are actually promoting the rise of cybercrime? Because with privacy laws protecting the people, don't you think to an extent we are actually pushing these guys to do more? Because privacy laws will ensure that people are more anonymous. They're not done. I don't know what you think.
This is a good point, but I think from our perspective, having all these privacy laws coming up is helping us to just do what just Scott said, that those the decision takers at those organizations start to think about it, that they should change, that they should think about it. And this is our lever that we can use to the organizations, big guys, to tell them, hey, you should do something about this. And is the lever that we have, because other than that, they just said business drives the features. So they do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Charlie, to add to this, in the US, the credit ratings organizations don't come under the ambit of privacy, because they said, if we don't have access to the user's details, how do we give a risk rating based on which a bank is going to give a loan?
And what did cyber criminals do? They targeted Equifax, 169 million individuals. And then as a result of that, they offered me free credit monitoring. Yeah. You know what I mean? And think about it. I wanted to write a book called How to Avoid Becoming the Next Online Identity Theft Victim. But in the United States, the Office of Personnel Management, which houses all of the records of federal employees, they were hacked, 29 million records. Blue Cross Blue Shield was hacked. That was my health insurance, 80 million records. Home Depot, Target, JP Morgan, Sony, Equifax, and Marriott Hotels. 8 data breaches that I'm aware of, I was the victim of. So here's the problem. The people we trust to protect our information aren't really doing a good job about it. And that's why, here in the United States, we have something called a credit freeze, which we can freeze our credit, which means that the threat actors cannot open up charge accounts and credit accounts in our name. And that's what I recommend. I don't know if you guys have something similarly in your countries. No?
Not yet.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like, and it's such an unequal playing field, because here in the United States, nobody wants the government to tell them what to do. So if you make people do things, so that's why, guys, it's just, we collectively, from us in Zambia and India and Switzerland and all over the world, we just got to collaborate. And that's why, an event like this is amazing, because, we learn so much. And the big thing is we face the same problems.
And just saying to that, before we just conclude, probably here, as I see you, is one of the things that we just all hear is our society as a global society is not ready to handle data as a value, as an asset. If we're talking about cash, if we're talking about gold, all those stuff, we know exactly from thousands of years what's the value of it. But when it comes to digital data, we don't have a clue. We don't care. I give all my personal data to anyone. I don't care until I got victimized. Yeah, I know. I know.
Very good point. It goes back to the basics. Understand what you're with. Then don't post it out there. Protect it.
Yeah.
So final last words, and we should now conclude. I think we've crossed the time. That is the last question we can quickly run through. That is, what should one do when their social media gets hacked? This is for the audience.
Don't get hacked. Put two-factor authentication. That's my last quick takeaway. Go out today and put two-factor authentication on all of your personal accounts. Will the bad guys figure out how to get around it one day? Yes, they will. But today, that is your homework for me. Do not, when the bad guys do their damage, good luck getting it back. So prevention. That's my 2 cents.
Chris, quickly, 30 seconds.
Well, I think Scott has rounded up the prevention part, but what happens when it does happen, your account gets hacked? So I think most of these companies have got procedures for you to engage them. You're able to lobby them for them to give you back. You have to prove your identity and on. But all in all, even if you get your account back, I wouldn't trust it because the damage would have already been done. So yeah, plan for your account getting hacked and then know the procedure for getting it back, but focus on the prevention. Focus on ensuring that your account does not get hacked. But if it gets hacked, well, that's another story. Thank you.
Okay, Charlie and Graf. And then
I just say create a new identity, because the biggest problem with identity theft is that it's a lot of effort to get it back. So probably once that's done, we probably should forget about it and get a new name and get a new passport, whatever. But still, it becomes very, very challenging and difficult.
Thank you so much, everyone. Angona, over to you.
What do I say? Thank you, Charlie, Constantine, Scott, Christopher, and Nirmalya, our own NKG and 2NKG. Thanks for not only moderating it so interestingly, and but also helping us to curate this session. So I'm really very happy that we have presented this session with experts from different countries, and we understand that threats are similar because in virtual world there's actually no boundary. And I understand the learning is it's always important to be on top of security, both at consumer level and at business level. And it's always important to invest in technology and in people to be on top of security. So anything else from your side?
Yeah, Scott yesterday said that if this session did not work out well, it would be my fault. And I say that it's a success because of everyone contribution. Thank you so much, everyone. And Charlie and Graf, I need to brush up your Bengali skills.
Hikache.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And yeah, of course, the success of this session, I understand that you all would appreciate from the kind of questions we got from audience, and thank you for addressing all of them so well. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. We'll be in touch. Don't worry.
5th edition of the Business IT Conclave of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. See you the next year with the 13th edition. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.